Hi, thanks for watching this episode of the Vital Point podcast. I wanted to give you some context just so you don't get confused. This episode was originally published on Instagram, and when I published it, the podcast was called One Question Wednesday. The reason for that being that I watched this amazing video with Gary Vee where he talked about if you want to do a podcast and you're just starting off, why don't you try a 90-second podcast? And I knew I wanted to talk about transformation, about integration, about breathwork and meditation and things that were a little bit heavier than 90 seconds. But I thought, what if we just keep it to one question? And so that's what I did. So two things came out of that. One, much shorter episode. So these videos are a lot shorter than some of the more recent episodes you may have been checking out on my channel. And two, I just wanted to get them out. I was just learning about podcasting. I had another podcast that I had gotten the idea for, recorded 5 or 6 episodes, and then sat on them, not really being able to put them out for almost a year, worrying about the editing, worrying about the distribution and the marketing and what to do. And so the idea with One Question Wednesday was to do the exact opposite of that. From the time that I saw the video from Gary Vee to posting the first episode with Ayahuasca Car was less than 2 hours. And so, 60% became the new 100%. It is a little bit messy. It's, that was my idea. I didn't want to get trapped in a cycle of perfection. Didn't want to get stuck. And I was just figuring things out, which worked out great. So wanted to get those episodes off of Instagram where they've been living and onto YouTube to get into a bigger audience and have all of the podcasts be under one umbrella. So if you haven't checked out the more recent videos, we're on season 6 now. Definitely subscribe to the channel. There's a lot of content on there. And this first season is really defined by not having any equipment. Season 1 ended when I realized that I really needed a microphone, and I've got a nice one now. So season 1 was recording onto my phone, a couple of episodes on Zoom, and then not having a microphone. But the content is fantastic. The guests are fantastic, and there's some really valuable content about breathwork, about ayahuasca, and psychedelic integration. And I think the content stands on its own. So I'm still really proud of it. I'm proud of the guests that I've had on this podcast, and I hope that you enjoy it too. If you're interested in learning more about psychedelic integration, coaching, breathwork, how to use breathwork to support, connecting to your purpose, having a more resourced and regulated nervous system for working with psychedelics, I'd love to chat with you more about that. There's information below about how you can get a hold of me for that. And if you're not part of my newsletter, definitely click the link below to join. You'll get a free guide to using breathwork for integration to start with, as in addition to, staying up to date with the breathwork circles that I'm holding, workshops, information about the podcast, all kinds of amazing stuff. So hope you enjoyed this video. Just wanted to give some context. So, when you're watching it and it says One Question Wednesday, you're like, wait, I thought this podcast was called The Vital Point. It is The Vital Point, and the vital point is to practice, that you have to put these things into practice. But like I said in the beginning, when this was recorded, One Question Wednesday was what I was doing. So I hope you enjoy it. Cheers. Is Nick Heath, also known as the Breathing Diabetic. He is an Oxygen Advantage instructor, researcher, and writer. And I came across his content on Instagram. Really fascinating stuff. The work that he's doing around how breathwork can help people with diabetes, and also just really great content. And I was really excited to have him on the show. So Nick, welcome.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jonathan. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. So actually, when I found your content, you have a bunch of these posts where they're like these one-line ideas or quotes about breath work, different ideas and little bite-sized nuggets. And that was where I think I found the first time that I discovered you and was like, oh, this is really cool. And like there was one I know that really stuck out to me that said like the point of having a breathwork practice is not to have a practice, which I really appreciated. And then the other one was like, you can't breathe your way out of a Big Mac, which I thought was just fantastic.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. So just great job with the content that you're doing. And yeah, really, really love it. So my question for today's show is, out of these quotes and ideas that you've posted, which one is your favorite? And can you kind of expand on it a little bit more?
Sure. Yeah. So I will quickly say the one sentence idea came from a guy named Josh Schecter. So he does a lot of one sentence ideas about marketing and all of these different things. And I thought, oh, I got to do this for breathing. So I'm not that creative. I borrowed it from someone else, but applied some things I've learned from breathing into it. But yeah, my favorite one. So the two you mentioned are actually two of my top, but my favorite one is breathing is the compound interest of health and wellness.
Mm,
And I love that because there's just you can break that down into so many different ways, but in my opinion, the benefits of breathing compound over time. So the more you do it, the more benefits you see. It's kind of like, watching your 401k grow over time or whatever an analogy you want to make with the stock market or whatever. But essentially when you're practicing breathing, you're getting so many different benefits. So you're helping your heart out, you're helping your digestion out, you're helping your stress and anxiety, you're helping your autonomic nervous system, you're helping cognitive function and memory, and all of these things are compounding over time. You get a little bit uh, better cardiovascular function, you might get a little bit deeper sleep, which is going to help your cardiovascular function, which is going to give you more energy. And it's there's really no way to quantify it, but it just keeps compounding over time, and you just basically never ending growth. It's one of the only places with health and wellness that it seems like you can get infinite growth by just some basic principles practiced consistently. And so I rambled a little bit there, but that's the main that's my favorite one, and I try to bring back that all the time, that it's about consistency, and little 1% gains every day compounded can grow into something really big.
yeah, thank you for that. I really resonate with that as well. And that's something that I try to work with my clients on as well is, that you can, I always talk about it in relation to exercise, right? Like if you go to the gym one day, it doesn't matter how hard you work out, you're really not going to get the benefits that you want in the long term out of that one session. And the great thing about breathing is, especially in relation to like, regulating your nervous system, and in relation to like somatic work and people that are working with trauma, is that if you practice certain breathing, on a regular basis, it becomes a resource. It's not just like, hey, you can breathe into this paper bag and calm yourself down. It's, oh, as I notice these things coming up in my nervous system, I can use these resources and my body knows how to react, knows like, oh, it's time to calm down now, So consistency, like you said, is the king.
That's right. And yeah, you nailed it, because that's what you're learning with consistency, is to notice these little cues in your body telling you, oh, maybe I need to do some sort of reset, or maybe something's off. Even though I feel okay, I'm noticing a little anxiety. And it's weird because breathing is so automatic and all of that, but since it's always there, there's always something you can tune into in your breath. And it makes sense that all these ancient cultures have done it, because it really does tell you your physiological state. So you might notice, hey, I'm breathing a little heavier, and then you realize, oh, it's because I have a presentation later and I'm getting a little anxious, even though I didn't notice it yet. I'm feeling it here.
Right.
And so, like with you mentioned different things like, oh, just do it once, or with a paper bag, and I think of that a lot with diets and exercise. A
Hmm.
lot of people start new diets here or there, or start a workout program and then they quit. And that's why I think breathing is, I call it the compound interest of health and wellness, because we're always breathing. Everyone
Yeah.
breathes. So it doesn't matter which workout you do, which diet you use, we're all going to be breathing. And that gives all of us an opportunity to be compounding with every breath we take, with simple things just like switching to nasal breathing, most of your life. That's something that will just compound over time. And so having the breath there nonstop, 24/7, 365 gives you this unbelievable opportunity to compound.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you brought in the awareness part of it as well. It's almost like in the beginning we have to practice awareness, but in the sort of in the middle and as you progress, it almost becomes like the side effect of like, well, my overall awareness is so much more in tune because I've been practicing and because I've been doing these breathing exercises over a long period of time. Now I'm more keyed into more subtle things that are happening in my body and with my breath. And I can definitely relate to that, in terms of like, I remember like the first time that I noticed that I was stressed out and I had this urge to breathe through my mouth. And just that became like this cue of, oh, what else is happening? Like maybe I need to stop and pay attention to it. And just that urge of, why do I feel like breathing through my mouth right now, was the cue for me to like stop and slow down and make sure that I wasn't breathing shallow, because all of a sudden it was like, oh, I didn't even notice that I was breathing shallow. I just noticed that I wanted to breathe through my mouth.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, time to slow it down, take some nice, deep breaths through my nose, and, just key into the rest of what my body is trying to tell me.
Yeah, and that gets back to your opening statement of the goal of a breathwork practice is to not need a breathwork practice, right? And it's a little different than how I meant it, but you kind of just illustrated that, of like tuning in. You already were, because of your breathing, you were able to immediately tune into these feelings rather than using some sort of breathwork practice to get you those feelings. So a lot of people engage in breathwork to like feel some sort of, whatever emotional release, or they
Mm.
want to feel relaxed. But you can then, if you've been doing it long enough, you start to just notice these little subtle cues in your body and things like that. And so that's kind of one of the ways of looking at the goal of it, is to not need it anymore, because you're always kind of tuned in. Now, no
Right.
one's going to get there. That's like, yeah, I'm not saying I'm there or anything, but that's kind of one of the goals, is to not need to rely on it, because you've done it so
Yeah.
much. It's instinctual for you to just immediately slow down your breath, or to speed it up, or whatever you need to do just becomes automatic.
Yeah, and I think to maybe bring the circle full with your analogy of the compound interest, it's like you've gone from being rich to being wealthy.
That's
That
right.
that interest is like working for you so much behind the scenes that you don't have to manage it actively. You don't have to pay attention to it. It's just there for you. Whether you need it or not, it's just working.
Perfect. Yeah, that was beautifully said. Yeah, it's your passive income at that point, right? You're just reaping all the benefits, and because you've worked hard and trained your body to breathe correctly. So that's perfectly said.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, where can people check you out if they want to learn more about you or work with you?
Yeah, so I have my Instagram account at the Breathing Diabetic. That's where I try to post fun stuff, maybe once or twice a week. The best place though is the website, thebreathingdiabetic.com. I have a newsletter, the Breathing 411. I send out every Monday, and that's kind of my favorite thing on the planet to do. I get to just look at breathing from a lot of different perspectives. It's called 411. It's four thoughts, one quote, and one answer, all related to breathing. So if you're interested, it's free and it's fun. I don't really do any. I'm open to doing one-on-one training and stuff, but I really just put all this information out there. We didn't talk about my background or anything, but yeah, I just want to help people with diabetes, and everybody really just breathe better. So it's all free. It's all out there. So please sign up and check out the website. There's lots of resources there too.
Yeah, I did some checking out of your website when I was, getting prepared for this episode. And you really do have a lot of really cool resources on there and scientific research. And I definitely appreciate the time that you've put into that. There's so many people in the breathwork space now, especially as it's getting more popular, where it's like definitely more on the woo side. And it's great to see so much science and research behind it.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah.